Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Katie Wyatt, President and CEO of El Sistema USA. Thank you for joining us for El Sistema USA's annual open meeting of the Board of Directors. Our mission is to support and grow a nationwide movement of programs inspired by Venezuela's El Sistema to effect social change through music for children with the fewest resources and the greatest need. It's my pleasure to introduce you to the new chair of the Board of Directors, Dr. Armand Hall.
Thank you, Katie, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm so pleased that you could join us. First, I'd like to highlight that many of our friends, colleagues, families, and communities in Texas and other parts of our country are really struggling because of the recent weather situations. And we have, as a part of our membership, 5 programs, but just communities who are in need there. And if it is within your power, please do the things that you can to support them. And not just now, but in the prolonged ways that they will need it after it is no longer in the news feed. It's really important that as a national organization, we try to pool our resources as much as possible to help those communities. Thank you. And I'm honored to be able to serve as the newly elected board chair, and a tremendous thank you to my immediate predecessor, Christine Taylor Conda, for her leadership, guidance, resourcefulness, and mentorship. I'm so pleased that she has chosen to remain on the board and will be a resource for us all as we continue to do the work of El Sistema USA. Like many of you, I believe that there's more to the power of music than just mere entertainment and simple expression. It has the ability to bring people together to collectively express and advocate for a vision of life desire. I see a fallacy in our typical American melting pot analogy fed to us as children as a tool for assimilation and losing of oneself. And I've been made aware by my fantastic partner, who is Canadian, of an alternate analogy, which is the mosaic, in which the power of the individual collectively makes the whole stronger. And so I hope that we can continue to do that in our programs by uplifting and upholding the communities in which we work and not trying to assimilate them into something. There is no perfect solution, but I hope you do see this as a viable path forward. If so, we must ask ourselves, in what we're planning and executing in our programs is aiding our students and families and communities to develop and maintain their independent identities so they can be recognized as vital members of this larger community. As we're uplifting their identity in our work, El Sistema is more than a collection of music programs. We are equipping the next generation with the power to make a difference in their communities, our country, and hopefully the world. This board of directors, who I am lucky and happy to have served on for the past 2.5 years, provides resources and guidance to communities to be successful. They're some of the most hardest working people I know. And I think that we mirror what is happening down in the membership inside of our organization. I hope that you continue to meet your community's needs. We are here for you, working to improve the resources to provide you to be your best so that your community can be their best. Please let us know what you need. Communicate with us and join us in this organizational work. Join a committee. You'll hear that several times today. Please feel free to join a committee, join the board, and we are here listening. We are working on our active listening. Thank you for attending our conference, and congratulations again to our symposium committee for all the wonderful work that they have done under the leadership of Trina Christensen from Utah, And now it's my pleasure to introduce a truly wonderful person and leader in highlighting and supporting programs across the country, Luke Smith, one of El Sistema USA's vice chairs, and he's chair of the governance committee. Thank you.
There we go, microphone. Thank you, Armand. Hi, everyone. As Armand said, my name is Luke Smith, and I am one of the vice chairs and also serve as chair of the governance committee. The governance committee of El Sistema USA focuses on the positive operations of the board of directors in order to support the fulfillment of the organization's mission and goals. And so we do this by annually recommending any updates to the bylaws, developing policies, coordinating the election of new board members and board officers, and managing the board's self-evaluation activities. Our newly elected officers for 2021 are a mix of returning and new officers. As you've just heard, Armand Hall is our new board chair after serving as vice chair. He succeeds our amazing chair of 3 years, Christine Taylor Conda. I am a returning vice chair, and I am newly joined in that role by Monique Van Willing. Khalida Jones continues as our clerk. Scott Laird remains our treasurer. And these officers, along with our committee chairs, comprise the executive committee of El Sistema USA. I'm excited to share the names of the wonderful people who have been elected to new terms as board members, some for their second 3-year terms and some joining the board for the first time. The elected members and members elected by the members and continuing in their board service for a second term are Hermes Camacho, Micah Miller, and Jessica Zweig. And a newly elected member beginning her first term is Lauren Shelton. Lauren is pictured in the slide alongside our other newly elected board members elected by the board, Linda Bunce, Jessica Therivel, Camille Delaney McNeil, Rodrigo Guerrero, and Ray Ramirez. And just to clarify for those of you that did not realize, the El Sistema USA board is comprised of individuals elected by the members. The majority are elected by the members, as well as individuals elected by the board of directors itself. You can actually meet the full board of directors or learn more about them on the website. And so I'm going to go ahead and just drop that link into the chat so that you have easy access to their individual stories. This year, we have also established a resource council. This is a newly comprised group of people who are past board members and important thought partners of El Sistema USA, and we're really grateful for their continued engagement and affiliation. Finally, I would like to highlight the ways that we depend on all of you in the wider El Sistema field to be part of El Sistema USA's governance. So each member organization is eligible to nominate and vote in nominate and vote in the annual election of board members. This is a 2-part process, includes a nomination period and then the actual voting period. The whole of the process runs from early September through late October. So please keep an eye out for notices about the nomination and election period, and either consider being elected yourself or nominating yourself or having your organization nominate you, and or help your organization decide who its votes should be applied to of the nominees. Additionally, we invite you to volunteer on a board committee. Armin has mentioned this, and you'll hear board committees reports throughout this meeting, throughout this annual meeting. So as you hear the work of these committees, really please consider where you might want to be involved and share your expertise, but also learn and grow with El Sistema USA through that process. A more local opportunity will also be existing soon through the new regional network initiative that we're launching this year. So it is really our need and our intention to have as many people involved as possible. Our entire field will benefit from having more people adding to El Sistema USA's efforts on behalf of the youth and families that we're all focused on supporting. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Khalida Jones, our board clerk and chair of the Racial Diversity and Cultural Understanding Committee.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's great to see so many of you here this afternoon. I hope I wasn't supposed to do something with my screen, but I am just sharing a few updates. I shared some updates last night at the networking event that went very well. Congrats to all. And so I'm just going to share a little bit about what the board has been up to with regards to our internal work with unpacking systemic racism, interpersonal racism, and how we can continue the work of ensuring equity is at the center of our vision. Early in the year, we released a tool called Hear Me Out, collaborated on by Joe Hamm and myself. And as I said yesterday, we did a pilot release of the tool for organizations to utilize within their programs. And the feedback was positive, and it did allow for some breakthrough conversations to happen with various organizations. We are still in the process of realigning, revisioning what some of our work looks like. And often what that means with EDI work is that sometimes you have to go back to the drawing board. Sometimes we have to deepen the work that's happening and experiment and see what works and see what doesn't. So that's where we are with that process. So we are still in a mode of revisions and looking at where we want to move next in terms of resources that we provide to the field. Many of you joined us for the listening session back in June, facilitated by Dr. Raja Sagar-Sakim and myself, which was right after the murder of George Floyd. And this session definitely activated a lot of questions, discomfort, and urgency to begin looking at how we as an organization can deconstruct some of the characteristics of micro-macroaggressions, implicit biases, and other white supremacy characteristics that often show up in our work intentionally or unintentionally. We also, as a board, began a deep dive with Dr. Sagar-Sakim, deconstructing and understanding racism, levels of racism, barriers to equity, and we are currently in the throes of setting up clear accountability systems. These accountability systems will assist us in equity-related goal setting as a means for us to move forward and support our members and member organizations. Finally, our committee is currently working to explore what meaningful investment in this work would look like on a board level, and we will continue to be open for feedback and ideas. It's critical for us to continue ensuring that we do this work as a collective with input from the field on your needs as members of El Sistema USA. And I want to encourage you, if this is a topic that you're passionate about or that you want to learn more about or that you want to get comfortable being uncomfortable, please join the committee. You can't start affecting change until you get into that space of discomfort. So I hope that you'll consider being a part of this group. It's a great group of individuals with various lived experiences and skill sets that really allows us to look at how we can best support our member organizations across the country. Thank you. I think I'm bringing up Scott.
Yes, thank you, Khalida. Good job. Good afternoon, everybody. It is great to be with you all today. My name is Scott Laird, and I'm honored to serve as the Treasurer and Finance Committee Chair for the board. And I'm really pleased today to bring you this report from the Finance Committee, and really basically just to let you know that our organization is fiscally strong in the midst of what has been an uncertain year in so many respects for organizations across the country. 2019 ended and 2020 started with a great deal of financial uncertainty for El Sistema USA as we found ourselves in the midst of a little bit of a cash flow emergency. To safeguard against the deficit, we mounted an emergency campaign to improve our cash flow. The campaign proved to be quite successful, and the crisis was very quickly averted. And then, of course, as you all know, COVID-19 hit just a couple of weeks after our last symposium, creating even more uncertainty. With so many individuals and organizations in financial crisis across the country as a result of the pandemic, I must admit, we as a committee and as an organization and as a board had no idea of the potential ramifications for El Sistema USA and what was to come as we moved into the summer. In order to meet that crisis and uncertainty, the board adopted a very conservative contingency budget in June, which kept our spending quite lean without cutting programs, and it gave us a great deal of flexibility to adapt our course after the first 6 months of the year. We really wanted to remain nimble and able to adapt, not knowing what to expect as we continued through 2020. In November, the board decided to continue that conservative budget for the rest of the fiscal year as the first 6-month period expired. And that proved to be a good call as we're in the midst of that time now. I am pleased to say that El Sistema USA has weathered the COVID-19 storm, and in fact, we are in quite strong fiscal position at this time. Among many areas where we can report good news, we were pleased to receive nearly $40,000 through the Payroll Protection Program from the government, and this was obviously welcome news in such a tight fiscal year. As we approach the time for proposing a new budget for the next fiscal year, the Finance Committee's plan is to stay the course. We want to continue to fund all of the important programs and work of El Sistema USA, but frankly, to minimize new expenses as much as possible and to stay a fairly conservative fiscal plan. To summarize, at a time when many organizations are really struggling financially, we are in a good place from a financial perspective. So let's move to the next slide, and we'll give you a little snapshot of our financial picture. As you look at the graphs of our end-of-year financials, I would like to draw your attention to two major points. You will see on the left is our revenue, and on the right is our expenses. So first of all, you will notice on the income and the expense side, you'll note that the Presto Mentorship Program accounts to close to 1/2 of our revenue and 1/2 of our expenses. So it's sort of a what comes in equals what goes out picture. This program has been hugely impactful for the past 3 years, involving 13 cohorts and 13 mentors. I'm sure most of you have heard about the Presto Mentor Program. Many of you are involved in it. This year represents the culmination of that impactful grant and program. So we are wrapping that program up. And so that look of our pie graph next year will be very different in some ways, because you won't see Presto, at least in that iteration, as it stands. So we are incredibly grateful to the Angel Foundation for that grant. It has impacted our membership in profound ways. Second, you will note that on the expense side, Presto and member support make up 75% of all of our expenses. And just to sort of draw that into real clarity for you, these are direct services which benefit you, our membership. 75% of all the money we spend. These are certainly the kind of percentages that we as an organization can be very proud of, and we will strive to continue. And quite honestly, you as a member can be very proud to be a member of an organization with these kinds of percentages. On the revenue side, please note the overall impact of individual giving, membership dues, and symposium revenue on our overall revenue. These are all areas that really are indicate your participation. Your participation in events like this event and others have a tremendous impact and benefit the national organization, and ultimately the national organization's ability to offer services for you and your peers across the country. As a final note, like the other committees, I want to encourage you to consider joining the Finance Committee. I want to tell you that it's not just for numbers people. I think my board colleagues get tired of me frequently sort of beginning sentences with, I'm a string teacher, not an accountant, but I've learned so much as a music educator and an arts administrator full-time in my regular work. I have learned so much as a member of and leader of the Finance Committee. My background is not in finance, so truly I've had to work hard to understand the numbers, to learn the intricacies of budget planning, allocation, and review, and frankly, presentation as well. And in the end, the work of the Finance Committee is really about our passion for El Sistema USA's mission and strong planning to maximize the future impact of this organization. I want to thank you all for your time, for listening to this, and for your interest in it. And now it's my pleasure to introduce my friend Brian Wiebe for the fundraising update.
Thank you, Scott, and good afternoon. And I bring you greetings from Northern Indiana and the proud member of El Sistema USA, Ecosistema. And I see 3 of my colleagues here, Hillary and Kent and Marcia, and we're just so excited to be part of this national network. And greetings, of course, from Revenue and Fundraising Committee. I think all of us chairs would say our committee is the best. But I would affirm you in joining any of these committees, but you do consider taking that step. Just reach out to one of us, reach out to Katie. It's such a great way to meet people, monthly meetings, and be part of that, and certainly learning in the field. It's been exciting to be together these five days. I know many of you have been engaged in the planning. Thank you for that. I hope you would also feel it has been exciting. And I think one thing we have proven is that 5-day virtual symposiums can be successful. How about that? I mean, how many have been part of a 5-day virtual that was this good? I think you'd shake your heads. No way. This has been so great. Well, what we're here to prove is revenue and fundraising is also going to do a virtual. And so this, I guess, will be the first one in our history as well. And so mark your calendars for May 7. Exact time to be announced, but May 7. And we want to extend the fund and prove that we can do a successful virtual fundraiser there. I'd invite all of you to start saving your dollars and make a gift. Plan on making a gift. It can be very small and it can be very large. Katie accepts all gifts. Scott is happy for any gift that comes in. And we invite you to invite family, friends, and colleagues. And we think the virtual offers some special opportunities here. We're not limited by, like, the art gallery. Last year it was very cool to be there. And some of you were there, but this year we can have as many as we like. So do think about that. One of the things to anticipate is we are going to give the inaugural, we'll announce it that night, the inaugural Teacher of the Year Award for El Sistema USA. How cool is that, right? We're also going to give the inaugural Student of the Year Award on that night. We'll be announcing both. And so there'll be a nomination process. And then we do want to say that the Teacher of the Year Award is going to be a named award. And so I have the great pleasure to right now, imaginary drum roll, and that we are going to announce that this award will be named in honor of our one emeritus board member, there's just one of those, and the founder of El Sistema USA, Mark Churchill. I know he's on this call. I don't know if he'd want to share his screen, Zoom. I think he wasn't sharing earlier. No pressure, Mark. But we do want to just say thank you to Mark for all he has done for this movement. And it will be fun to celebrate him as the name on the award going forward as well. So do make plans for May 7. Finally, one other way you can help with revenue and fundraising, kind of the resources side of making sure we can do all that we want to do as a network. And that is this $100 per year launch of an individual membership. That might be for some who are not part of a program in their state or in their local community, but it can even be for those of us that are. So it's an opportunity for Hillary, Kent, Marcia, and me to all also be individual members at $100. And it supports the program, and it's just another way of showing kind of solidarity with that. So. Okay, thank you. We hope to see you on May 7th. It's my pleasure to introduce the chair of the membership committee, Jessica Zweig.
Thanks, Brian. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jessica Zweig, and I'm the chair of the Membership and Engagement Committee, and I'm the program director at Play on Philly, so I'm hailing from Philadelphia today. The M&E Committee, as it's fondly known, is tasked with reviewing, administering, and analyzing the biennial census, overseeing the membership structure, and creating, revising categories to fit our association's needs, and provide ways to engage our member organization to carry out the work of El Sistema USA. I really want to thank everybody who attended yesterday's regional launch sessions. The committee is really looking forward to working with the entire membership to build out regional opportunities and structures that work for our students and our communities. And I want to thank you all, to all the member organizations who took the many hours, and I know it took a long time, but to submit the data for the 1920 census. We received some or all information from 76 of our 115 member organizations. And I want to give a special thanks to Duke University and the Bass Connections team, which is made up of undergraduate and graduate students, interdisciplinary teams who were responsible for programming the census, doing the data collection, and analyzing the information that you're about to see. The information that we collect from organizations across the US and Canada enables us as El Sistema USA to design programming which supports the field and, very importantly, demonstrate the collective impact that we have on our students and communities. As the biggest data collection effort that ESUSA embarks on each year, I know that the survey can be daunting. So if you still have not submitted your census data, we would be pleased to collect that information. Push, push, nudge, nudge. The following slides are a representative set of data from all that has been collected so far. The complete findings will be published in a biannual census report, which will come out in the coming months, so you can dive into the statistics in more details. So in this first slide, you'll see our field continues to grow. So there was a precipitous incline from 2009 to 2015 in the number of organizations across the country, which are El Sistema inspired. While our growth has slowed a bit in recent years, there are many more students and communities to serve. And additionally, we as El Sistema USA are working to make our membership offerings, particularly as the Membership and Engagement Committee, we're working to make those offerings robust so that organizations who become members find value in their membership, stay members, and continue to be counted in this critical way. In the next several slides, we'll dive a little bit into students we served during the 1920 school year. Since the 17-18 collection, our students have remained majority female at 59%, and 69% of our students identified as Black or Latinx. As we're a relatively young movement in this country, it is unsurprising that of the 76 organizations who responded, 92.5% of students served are pre-K to middle school kids. It's going to be incumbent upon us all to help create pathways to continue musical studies into high school as those students grow. Student retention across our program has increased slightly since 2018. As a field, we've really yet to define how we calculate and standardize our indicators for measurement of retention rate, attrition, and re-enrollment. The census data will continue to increase in efficacy as we agree how we're calculating and standardizing these ways. One modification the Membership and Engagement Committee made to last year's census to improve our consistency in data was to ask programs to submit information based on independent 501c3 status or affiliation with a larger organization. We wanted to ensure that ES-inspired programs operating under a larger nonprofit's umbrella counted only the students they served as part of the ES-inspired program. As a field, we are nearly split 50-50 of programs who operate under that larger organizational umbrella, like an orchestra, and organizations that operate as an independent nonprofit. Of the 67 organizations who reported on their programmatic offerings pre-pandemic, we found that string ensemble, instrumental sectionals, and symphony orchestra were among the top 3 programmatic offerings. Of note, something I found interesting is that in 4th place is that individual lesson program. In contrast, many programs shifted to the one-on-one virtual lesson model as the pandemic hit, and organizations adjusted that model given the constraints of Zoom. Programs continued instrument sectional work virtually, and creative composition programming was provided fully virtually as well. While we see a 2% increase in organizations investing in external evaluation of their programming, this may also be an area for El Sistema USA and its member organizations to consider as an avenue which could help increase funding streams and bring legitimacy to the work we do in the field of music education. Our field continues to receive about 55% of its funding from foundations and individual support, with another 10% of revenue coming from local, state, or federal government streams. On the other side of the balance sheet, on the right, we've increased our investment in program staff and teachers to 63% of our expenses. This is a 5% increased investment in people since our last census. I apologize I'm speaking so fast, but you'll have a chance to look at this in more detail when the full report comes out. As a field, we've continued to increase our paid workforce with 10.5% of full-time employees and 57.6% of workforce as part-time or contracted employees. Also to note is that nearly a third of our workforce is a dedicated and vital group of volunteers. Since the 17-18 census, we've seen a decrease in contracted positions and a shift to part-time salaried work. And this shift is very promising since it has implications for teaching artist retention and the professionalization of teaching artistry within the Sistema field. Over a 3-year time span, we've seen a 75% retention rate in overall staff, both full and part-time. This is also a positive statistic, as consistency can be a key to the success of our students. So in the next few slides, you'll see some unsurprising realities about our field workforce. The first one is our teaching artists, a majority who identify as white European Americans, do not reflect the majority of our students who identify as Hispanic, Latinx, Black, and African American. On the next slide, you'll see that at the highest level of our organizations, our executives are overwhelmingly female at 73% and majority white at 57.4%. This is in contrast to office administrators and program assistant positions where a majority of employees are Black or Latinx. There is much work to be done in recruitment, hiring practices, and retention, which address this stark reality. However, I find that there is also hope for the future as we organize and create pathways for success in our field for our own students. Programs like NEMAN, the National Instrumentalist Mentoring and Advancement Network, or the Sphinx LEAD program, make space, provide support and mentorship for students who are interested in a career leading the very organizations they grew up in. Many of you are already incorporating leadership training into your core activities, which set the stage for career choices in adult lives later on. And I always say to my Play on Philly students that the happiest moment in my career would be if one of them took my job. According to the self-reported census data, member organizations are investing heavily in diversity, equity, and inclusion professional development at 40.1% of their PD investment. Representation and who our young people see reflected in their leadership matters. We also took the census opportunity to ask member organizations about the impacts that COVID-19 has had on their programming and organizational health. While we know that summer programming often functions as safe, supervised spaces for students during the summer months and make vital contributions to students' progress during the year, 61% of reported programs did not offer any summer programming last year. As travel and gathering has come to a halt, it is unsurprising that organizations made significant cuts to their staff travel and space rental budgets. But this data would also suggest that organizations chose to make cuts in other areas so as to retain teaching artists and staff at a critical moment when jobs were on the front of everyone's mind. So thank you for putting people first. Finally, respondents indicated what resources would be of value to them as members of El Sistema USA. Written responses were coded to reveal that staff and teaching artists development showed up 13 times, followed by response indicating need for replicable materials. As I mentioned at the start, this data that I just presented is a subset of the wealth of information we collected, and it will be made available in the coming months in its full form. Despite a worldwide pandemic, we are seeing overall growth in our field, both in our organizational and fundraising capacity, our staffing, and the number of students we serve. There is much work to do, and El Sistema USA is committed to the work for ourselves and for our member organizations of increasing our skills and understandings of culturally competent, diverse, and equitable programming, reflective of the communities we serve. This type of collection, like the census, is essential as it provides the field with a benchmark, a report card, if you will, for how we are doing and where there is room for improvement and growth. If you have not completed your census, it is not too late. Please take a moment to make your voice heard and add your data to the collection. You can email Katie, or you probably have a link in your email inbox. And finally, I'll put in my plug. If you are interested in joining the Membership and Engagement Committee and lending yourself to this important work, please reach out. I will drop my email in the chat. Thank you so much, and I'm going to pass it back to Armand.
Thank you, Jessica, for that wonderfully illuminating information. Hopefully everyone can use that. We're moving on to discuss the Programs Committee, which is a new committee formed most recently here within El Sistema USA that will begin to encompass all of the programming that we have. The most important thing was the largest one we had, and we're wrapping up, was the Presto program, which we $1.1 million through the Paul M. Angel Foundation, a tripartite format of matching funds, mentorship, and nonprofit professional development was completed for our 13 cohorts. And we're in the process of planning for what we affectionately call Presto 2.0. But I'd like to, if we can advance the slide, I'd like to introduce the Angelica Cortez, who will now be taking over as the chair of the program committee. She is right now the program manager of equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging at the Juilliard School. So thank you, Angelica, for your leadership here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Armand. And good morning, everyone. Really good to see so many of you on here. Very excited to head up this committee. Katie and Armand, I want to say thanks to you two for asking me to head that up. And I'll just say that the things that I'm interested in terms of the work on our programming is certainly expanding that, finding more through lines and connections and ways to kind of connect the programming that already exists, including the symposium and the Presto work. Certainly connecting with the RDCU committee, which I'm on, and making sure that RDCU is embedded into every aspect of our programming. So really excited to work with you all. And as if you haven't had enough plugs to become part of one of the committees, allow me to fill that need right now. Please be sure to connect with me or connect with anyone else on the board if this is of interest to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Angelica. And I tell you, we certainly need people for the planning of Presto 2.0. So please feel free to join that community. And if you're not inspired enough, please go and find the Presto presentation that happened yesterday as our cohort members reflect on how the core values of El Sistema USA were reflected in their work and what they learned through this process. So now I throw it over to Monique and Rob to discuss the strategic planning.
Thanks, Armand. I'm excited to share today about a strategic planning. My name is Monique van Willig, and I'm humbled to share as the vice chair of the board of directors. So I actually just first wanted to highlight who brought about the strategic plan, and we'll talk a bit about process. So Rob Goforth and I were co-chairs of this group. You can see all the names under our strategic planning committee over there, and of course, different people added to the process in varying levels. And then we also had staff on our team. Katie, of course, was on the team, and some staff members who are no longer in the field. Our process timeline. So the process actually started in June 2019 with a board retreat. And in the next 6 months, we had a committee where we met monthly. And over that time, Katie and I also did some intentional work to meet with many stakeholders across the field. And these were leaders, people who've been in the field for a while, teachers, staff members. So we took all of that information. The question we were asking is what support does the field need, and where should we be going in the next 5 years? Where do we want to see ourselves? And then at the symposium last year, we had 2 focus groups where about 100 members gave us feedback. This was both group and individual feedback. Then we did a share out with the board in March, April, and then we actually paused from April to December 2020. We paused the process, and I think this was due to 2 main reasons. The one was that we, the budget stayed the same over the next year, so there was sort of no new development of new projects that were budgetary in this current year, and then also capacity. I think during the pandemic at the time, we just didn't have the capacity to think forward in that way. So now we're excited to re-engage in the process from January. So if you actually look at this link that I'm about to share in the chat box, I'd love to share with you where we landed last year, April 2020. As you can see, that wasn't really, it was tiered out, but it still needed a lot more work. So feel free to go to that Prezi infographic. And I just want to share briefly where, sort of the frame through which we looked at this work. So we looked at 3 predominant frames: expanding the work, deepening the work, and sustaining the work. And this actually comes from community development and international development of some of my colleagues internationally who do a lot of field building. And in speaking with them, they were saying that when you want to build a field, so Sistema is a field of about 120 programs, you actually need to focus on expanding, deepening, and sustaining at the same time. Now, of course, you prioritize and you're wise about how you do that, but if you want to field build, you've got to focus on all 3. And just moving back to the top of the slide is that a big focus that we were looking at and thinking of looking at as we move forward is the intersection of musical excellence, or excellence as a whole, musical, social, and academic excellence, as well as equity work. And I think we can put so many different words into those 2 categories, but I think maybe the bottom line is that the field embodies those categories as a whole. That this is sort of who we are. We work at that intersection often. And the bottom 2 bullet points is equity work, looking at what is the role of equity work inside our work, as well as what is our role in driving national conversations. And then maybe just one more lens I'd like to put on this is that another lens was a dual lens on our work, remembering that we are an organization that is Sistema USA, the organization, and that consists of a board and a small staff team. And it's a working board and a small staff team. So there's the organization and there's the field. So we're looking at that lens is what is our role for the field, and we had to do some shifting of lens around being one organization versus being an organization that sort of leads a network of organizations. So there would need some shift in frame needed to happen in the process. So with this, in December and sort of January, Katie and I met a few times, and then met with Rob as well. And then we took the strategic priorities in a sense that you see on the Prezi infographic, and we sort of reshaped it. So we took out deepening, sustaining, and expanding, and that's still the foundational work, foundational lens. But now we actually made 6 priorities that we are hoping for over the next 5 years. And together with this, we actually already prioritized from year 1 to year 5, what happens when. Okay, so next slide, I'm just going to go through each of these real quick. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is develop regional networks and support. You can see this work already happening with Jess and the great work that Jess and the team has done. And so this part is about activating member leadership through regional development and expanded opportunities. And I think part of this is looking at how can regions do some work to support themselves. We are a small national organization. How can we drive regional support? And also support the beautiful work that's already happening at the regional level. So some of this looks like launching the Sistema USA regions and leadership. You could see those groups happen this week with Jess and the team, as well as there were regional meetings with Sistema Venezuela recently. And then add regional representation to the board of directors at some point, or in terms of, not sure how this will happen, but how do we create feedback loops that are live with the field? And then creation of a teaching artist working group. This would be more in the support realm with networking and shared learning. Next one, this is one that we're passionate about, amplify youth voice and leadership. And let me give a little preface here, is that we do not yet know what this will look like. Like this week, we heard at the symposium about ageism a lot in the, for example, positive youth development workshops. And so we're really trying to look at what does this look at like at board level, but we are sure that we want this to happen. So this is the role of youth-driven participation and action. And this could look like many things. It could look like a networking and leadership forums that promotes communication across the field, either regionally or nationally, in terms of amongst students. This could be a representation on the board. It could be a junior board. It could be a working group. It could be a project group. I think we have 6 ideas going at this point. But we are passionate about figuring out what this looks like, because people believe in youth voice, not just as a token. We want youth action and youth voice as part of this process. Then the next one is regional orchestras. And this work has already been done in terms of seminarios that are regional. And so in a sense, we're thinking, how can we support this work and also create sort of intentionality around regional orchestras, and what do we build around those regional aspects with the prospect of it leading to a national children's orchestra by 2025. So this, I do want to preface here that this whole plan is still to be board approved. It's still to go through process. So that's something for us to know. So I'm putting, these are hopes at this point. So I hope you hear that. And then the creation of an alumni network around voice. Our alumni hold beautiful expertise. How do we support them and bring in those voices? Okay. Teacher development and capacity building. How do we support programs musically, academically, and socially, knowing that we need to focus on all three of these? We're not necessarily placing more importance on any one. So creation of national professional development opportunities. Again, I think at this point, not quite sure what exactly this will look like, but this could be a certificate of some sort through partnership or through collaboration. And then the second one is launch a second round of capacity building cohort and regranting. So Presto 2.0, I know there's some development there and what that looks like. And then sharing of collaborative best practices nationally. And the question we might ask ourselves here is, how do we drive the national conversation around best practices, either regionally or nationally, and what will that look like? So intentionality around sharing best practices so that we deepen work and the field grows. Again, this could happen through so many ways. It could happen regionally through frameworks, working groups, gatherings, trainings, but also looking at how can we sort of place this work at that intersection of sort of excellence and equity. Okay, next slide would be expand membership. And this is some great work, some of this that Jess and a team is already doing. And again, I would put a dual lens on this, is that expanding the membership is also about sustainability for our Sistema USA. So the more we expand, that's also part of the way we sustain. And then how do we support the field at large? So individual memberships, affiliate partner memberships, as well as a COVID-19 recovery support team of sorts that focuses on how do we come out of the pandemic, and then a possible brand campaign. And I think the thing behind a brand campaign is actually profile. So it's not necessarily about a brand campaign, but it's about how do we build profile. And I would put a dual lens on profile as well. We are about 120 programs, and we know each other predominantly well, but we are situated within a landscape, a larger national landscape of education, social justice, youth development. You add to that landscape what comes to your mind. And the question becomes, how do we build profile in that national landscape? And then equity, diversity, and inclusion. I know Khalida shared a bit more about this work and today. And I think just as an overarching banner is EDI becomes a practice and foundation to all our work. And this is definitely a work in progress, but the goal is for us to embody this from the board level. And the RDCU committee drives this work and drives this accountability. And firstly, starting with internally, but with the intent of at some point prospectively sharing out that journey with the field. So we're not putting pressure on ourselves right now, but we want to do this work well. Our final slide is around a national conversation. And again, I want to link this to profile. This one will probably come later in the 5 years. How do we build profile both in the field, and how do we situate ourselves nationally amongst other national organizations? So the prospectively using a stakeholder engagement process introduced to us by Brian Weeby. It's a beautiful process to facilitate a national conversation that's possibly at the exploration of this intersection that our field embodies so well, excellence and equity. Now, we don't have the right verbiage for that yet. We don't know what that conversation will be, and we don't know where it will lie, but we know that it might be great to build. Why can't we lead some of those conversations? Who says that we can't? I guess that's the question that's coming up. And then our final slide is next steps. We'll prioritize these over the next 5 years, which we've already done. There's an operating plan, which Rob is actually going to lead the way. That's his expertise. This will still go through board approval and sort of taking it apart and giving more feedback by the board. And then out of this will come a full report outlining the whole process. One last thing that I want to say is that this is definitely a living and breathing plan. Then reflection will be built into the plan. It's living and breathing, and it might even change as we move forward, just thinking through what is the landscape that we're in. Thank you so much. We invite feedback. Thanks for your collaboration.
Thank you, Monique and Rob and everyone else who served on the committee for that information. And now we've reached the end of our board reports, and Katie Wyatt has some exciting announcements on some awards that we have given by the board.
Thanks, Armand. I just want to pin Joe and Christine. Okay. It is my great pleasure to honor Joe Hamm and Christine Taylor Conda for their extraordinary service to El Sistema USA. You see in front of us two pictures from these are board gatherings. The picture on the left is a retreat that Christine hosted in Chicago. And the picture on the right is right after our symposium in Detroit. I'm just going to share some photos. These are of Joe and Christine. The one on the left is from 2015 from San Antonio, if you can remember those days. The photo on the right is Christine and Lenny being honored for her service as an outgoing board member. The photo at the bottom is Christine and Scott and I in Chicago. I want to first speak to the accomplishments of Joe Hamm. Joe Hamm was a member of the founding board of directors of El Sistema USA and was instrumental in many of the founding aspects. This includes early versions of El Sistema USA's website, social media presence, logo and brand development, and most importantly, the development of our first census process. From 2012 to 2017, Joe led the Census Committee, which included a partnership with PhD candidates at George Mason University in establishing our first attempts at a membership association at getting a handle on the field. Who were we? How big were we? How many students were enrolled? And where are our nucleos? It is thanks to Joe that we now have a culture of data gathering and using research to tell the story of the El Sistema movement. Thank you so much to Joe for your incredible contribution and your devotion to telling the story of our students' journey and sharing the spirit of tocar y luchar that is happening everywhere.
Thank you so much for those kind words.
There's more. Christine Taylor Conda served as the board chair of El Sistema USA from July 2018 to December 2020, following Bonnie Reagan and our founding board chair, Stanford Thompson. Christine is responsible for a foundational component of membership in El Sistema USA, codifying the guiding principles which led to our criteria for organizational membership. This allowed El Sistema USA to grow from 60 members at the beginning of her tenure to 120 members today. Under Christine's leadership, El Sistema USA was awarded $1 million from the Paul M. Angel Foundation for the launch of the Program for Emerging El Sistema Organizations, PRESTO. During her tenure, we partnered with Sphinx Connect for the 2019 Symposium and Seminario, and we decided to make National Symposia and Seminario's annual events to support the field of El Sistema. Christine guided the board of directors through 2 strategic planning processes and hosted us in Chicago twice for annual planning and board development retreats. Thank you so much, Christine, for your leadership, your heart for coalition and community building, and your incredible support.
Thank you.
Before Christine and Joe get to talk, we have home movies. So I want to share some home movies. Give me just a moment. The first is one of Joe Hamm telling stories. I just wanted to share, this is a video that Joe made while we prepared for an East Coast Seminario, the DC Seminario at the Kennedy Center.
Hello, world. Hello, people. I have no idea what I'm talking
about. Ugh! Let's see if I can bring it back one more time.
I am going to. It's gonna be exciting. Like I'm ready to go right now. I'm gonna go to the Kennedy Center, Washington D.C. Kennedy Center. How about you, Felix? What does it feel like to be on the stage of the Kennedy Center? Well, I can't specifically tell you. I've never been.
Thank you. I also want to share who could forget this moment from Detroit.
Long, long, long day. Sing like you like to sing. God loves all simple things. For God is the simplest of all. For God is the simplest of all.
And then another moment, we've got to see Christine in action at the symposium. Duh. Just a moment. So weird to be in person. And finally, one more in action. Joe is immediately to the left of Brian Prechtel on the end. Here he comes. Congratulations. Thank you so much. Awards are on their way to your homes.
Our next guest may have perfect attendance, but one thing she does not have is a perfect attendance.
We'd love for you to say a few words, Christine and Joe.
Joe, you want to go?
Sure. Thank you, Christine. Wow, what a journey that was. I love home videos. We got to keep making more of those in the future so we have more good stuff to share. So thank you so much to my friends and colleagues all over the country. I'm here at my home in Norfolk, Virginia, with Soundscapes, for those of you that don't know. I've been in the field for quite some time before we were really calling it a field, like we've talked about before. And I'm just so proud of our entire group. To go from not exactly knowing to asking incredibly complex and intelligent questions is really going to help us to continue to be.
Gotta turn it down. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, Joe.
It's just going to help us make what we want, make the program and the field and the work of our dreams come true. And as much as I appreciate the numbers that they're telling in these stories, the storytelling is really what I'm interested in, what I love. And so, you know, the video clip that Katie shared, you know, the work of individuals, whether you're playing in bucket band or whether you're in an ensemble of 100 or more people, you know, that's where the story is, and on the teaching artists as well. So it's been a pleasure and an honor and very fulfilling to contribute to the field, and I'm glad that I've pulled my weight over the years, and I hope to contribute into the future in some way. So thank you, and much appreciation for all my friends and mentors, and I look forward to seeing you again in the future. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody. That home video was fantastic, and when we were all singing together at the symposium, Joe jumped on the drum kit, so he was right next to me when we were doing that fun stuff. It has been an honor to serve El Sistema USA, and I really want to thank my predecessors, our founder, Mark Churchill, and Stanford Thompson. I want to thank Bonnie Reagan, who mentored me, and I want to thank the two people who served as vice chairs while I was chair, Armand and DeLugue. Such phenomenal camaraderie and guidance. I want to congratulate the executive committee of the board of El Sistema USA, and thank you all for your leadership, and thank the entire board. You heard from some tremendous leaders today who run the committees, but there are other board members who have done so much to sustain, even for us to exist. There's a board member that jumped in and saved our status as a 501c3 organization, just stuff you guys just don't know, but a phenomenal board, every one of you. And I want to thank such a wonderful partner and leader of this organization, Katie Wyatt. She's intrepid. Her energy just knows no bounds. And her vision has really taken us to where we are now. It's been wonderful working with you. I want to let you all know how much I am still inspired by Maestro Antonio Abreu. And I think about how happy he would be to see this symposium taking place. I don't think he would be surprised, however, because I've never known such a visionary, and I'm sure he saw this happening. But I continue to champion the guiding principles which have informed our membership criteria. And I've been thinking about that wheel, the membership criteria lately, as the conversation of diversity, equity, and inclusion comes to the fore. And I know a lot of us have questioned, should diversity, equity, and inclusion be another one of the criteria components? But it seems to me that what we need to do is put a circle within the circle that has DEI swirling through it, so that it's there, it's present, and everybody knows that it should permeate every aspect of what we're doing with El Sistema USA. There is no room for isms of any kind in what we do and what we embody. Because George Floyd's murder is still so painful for us, racism is the topic that comes to the fore right now, and especially the way Black and Brown people are treated in this country. But I'm sure that as we continue to explore DEI and our role within disseminating information to make this a better world, we're going to look at all other aspects of diversity, equity, and inclusion, sexism, racism, gender identity, ageism. There's so many things that we want to make sure that we are thinking about as we progress as an organization. So that's my plug. I think it should be a circle within a circle. Joe helped design the first iteration, so maybe he'll help design the second one. As we go through these changes and these discussions, which are trying, and they need to be, I hope that we remember that we found our tribe when we found El Sistema, and our strength is through the grace that we give ourselves and each other, not just in this time of COVID and upheaval, but at all times. There's a Bible verse that says, "Cause me to hear your loving kindness in the morning." It is what I meditate on, and what I feel espoused when I just call up Stan and say, we need some help here, or I call up Dan and say, how did you guys do this? How did you launch this program? How do you get the kids to sit and listen to anything? Or I call Anya in Miami. I mean, we're a real group of friends, and we're sharing our experiences, and that's what's developing this community and this movement, which I love. I finally want to thank two groups. One is starting with Isaac Sinnott, who is my partner in every way when it comes to El Sistema. He's the one that encouraged me to join the board, and he has just been a great advisor in everything from the guiding principles and membership and engagement, which he sits on, to sort of everything that has come up with El Sistema USA. And he leads a terrific team at Ravinia, Sistema Ravinia. Our whole team is here, and we have a group of phenomenal teaching artists as well. But he's really my partner in crime in all of this. And then finally, I would like to thank my family, my husband, David, and my daughter, Sophia, who sometimes pops in on calls and who I was trying to get to turn down her computer. But family and the love of family and doing God's work in this world are what motivate me. And that is an ethos that I feel among all of you in El Sistema USA. So I really thank you for the opportunity. I will continue to serve in any way that I can.
Thank you so much, Christine. Can't tell you, you are my person. Thank you for everything. And I hope you will all join us now for our closing keynote address. We'll close out of this Zoom room, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much to the Board of Directors of El Sistema USA.
Thanks, Joey.
Thank you all, everyone.